here up top. Okay, you got the Jackie Youngs, the Kelsey Mitchells. That's the Louis Vuitton store. We're replacing Kelsey. We're not replacing it with another Louis V item. Okay, we're not going quite to the bottom.
If the Indiana Fever make this move, their championship window could effectively be over, driven by a dangerous financial illusion currently influencing much of the WNBA fan base. Casual observers look at the Fever roster and call for emotional continuity, pushing the front office to hand Kelsey Mitchell a massive $1.4 million Supermax contract, assuming her 20 points per game make her irreplaceable and that losing her in free agency would be disastrous. However, a more analytical perspective grounded in salary cap realities suggests otherwise. In today's highly efficient professional basketball environment, committing a significant portion of the cap to an inefficient, isolation-heavy player can be a critical mistake. By cutting through the surface-level narratives and focusing on the numbers, a different strategy emerges, one that involves reallocating resources more effectively and building a stronger, more cohesive roster. With the new collective bargaining agreement raising the salary cap to $7 million and the Supermax fixed at $1.4 million, dedicating such a large share to a single player like Mitchell could severely limit flexibility. Instead, the Fever have an opportunity to replace her production through smarter financial decisions and construct a more balanced, synergistic team around their franchise cornerstone, avoiding what could otherwise become a costly long-term error.
Some options that we can put together. We can piece together 2 to 3 quality pieces to replace Kelsey Mitchell. She's gonna command $1.4 million. I believe the Indiana Fever.
Listen carefully to the precision of that financial warning, because it highlights a harsh reality that must guide any serious analysis. Committing that level of money would effectively destroy the team's perimeter defensive depth, leaving no financial flexibility to retain key, highly synergistic defenders like Lexi Hull or to secure an emotional enforcer such as Sophie Cunningham. This decision would result in a fragile, top-heavy roster that is unlikely to withstand the demands of a grueling 52-game season. Building a sustainable, multi-year championship contender requires a disciplined, emotion-free approach rooted in financial strategy. You don't replace 20 points per game with one expensive player. Instead, you distribute that production across a carefully constructed, efficient portfolio of contributors. This is the principle of aggregate efficiency, maximizing overall output through balance and depth. While many casual fans struggle to understand this approach when evaluating free agency, it remains the foundation of smart roster construction.
All these people here up top. Okay, you got the Jackie Youngs, the Kelsey Mitchells. That's the Louis Vuitton store. We're replacing Kelsey. We're not replacing it with another Louis V item. Okay, we're not going quite to the bottom.
Listen closely to the brilliance of that corporate retail analogy, because it captures the core strategy perfectly. When you lose a maximum tier asset, your instinct should not be to immediately replace it with another equally expensive one. You don't walk into a luxury boutique and spend $1.4 million on a single replacement like Jackie Young, nor do you overpay an aging veteran just to satisfy emotional pressure from the outside. At the same time, you can't afford to fill your roster with low-value, unproven talent. The optimal path lies in strategically targeting the undervalued middle tier of the WNBA market. Even when evaluating premium options like Ariel Atkins, an elite perimeter scorer, or Gabby Williams, a versatile and disruptive defensive presence, the financial reality remains clear. These players command significant salaries and won't come at a discount. Investing roughly $750,000 in one such player may improve defense, but it limits overall roster depth, potentially leaving the team vulnerable over a demanding season. For the same cost as a max contract, you might secure one high-level contributor and a minimum salary bench piece, which still fails to address broader structural needs. To truly capitalize on the system built around Caitlin Clark, the focus must shift toward assembling a deeper, more efficient collection of role players whose specific skill sets align with a fast-paced, transition-heavy offense, unlocking far greater value across the roster.
Probably gonna be about half of that based on this, so you could get a Bridget Carleton from in the $600K range, okay? You could probably get Bridget Carleton for the 550, 600K, you probably can land a Bridget Carleton, and she's a...
Listen closely to the financial value embedded in this projection because it reveals a far more efficient roster-building path. A player like Bridget Carleton represents an ideal tactical fit alongside Caitlin Clark, bringing versatility, intelligence, and elite size for a guard while thriving without high usage. Having previously operated effectively alongside stars such as Nafisa Collier and Kayla McBride, she understands how to maximize impact through spacing, efficient shooting, and disciplined defense. At an estimated $600,000, she delivers elite value, providing perimeter shooting and defensive stability while freeing up significant cap space compared to a max contract. That surplus can then be strategically reinvested, starting with a high-upside athlete like Rae Burrell, whose speed and transition ability make her a perfect complement in an up-tempo system. Despite inconsistent production in Los Angeles, her market value remains artificially low, creating an opportunity to unlock her potential alongside an elite playmaker where her role is simplified to sprinting the floor and finishing in space. With shooting and speed addressed, the remaining resources can strengthen the interior by targeting a mobile, rim-running presence such as Aaliyah Boston-type archetypes, or more directly players like Dorka Juhas, Temi Fagbenle, or a developing prospect such as Laetitia Amihir. These additions bring rebounding, energy, and finishing ability to complete a fast-paced system. Altogether, this approach transforms a single high-cost decision into a diversified, high-efficiency roster build, maximizing depth, athleticism, and synergy while preserving financial flexibility and long-term competitiveness.
Ariel Atkins and a Bridget Carleton, or a Bridget Carleton, Rae Burrell, and a Temi Fagbenle, 3 for the price of 1 of Kelsey Mitchell. I think you have to look at these things, and I believe it's a move that the Indiana Fever need to look to.
Let the full weight of that financial calculation sink in, because it represents the pinnacle of modern sports strategy. Instead of committing $1.4 million to Kelsey Mitchell and an isolation-heavy system, the smarter path is to redistribute that capital across multiple high-efficiency contributors. By acquiring Bridget Carleton, Rae Burrell, and Temi Fagbenle for a comparable total cost, the team gains depth, defensive versatility, and transition speed while eliminating the structural limitations of a top-heavy roster. This approach rebuilds perimeter defense, strengthens rotation durability for a 52-game season, and preserves the flexibility needed to retain key role players like Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham. More importantly, it creates an optimized ecosystem around Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, surrounding them with efficient, unselfish talent that aligns with their timeline and playstyle. Elite front offices avoid overpaying for reputation or emotional appeal, steering clear of costly alternatives like Azura Stevens or Kayla McBride if those deals recreate the same financial constraints. The Indiana Fever face a defining offseason. Either execute a disciplined, unpopular but strategic decision to let Mitchell walk and embrace a diversified roster model, or succumb to pressure and risk locking themselves into a fragile, inflexible structure that could derail their championship ambitions before they fully materialize.